In today's video, I'll be giving you 5 tips to make your BMW's engine last forever. These tips aren't only easy to follow and can start being used almost right away, they're also pretty cheap, especially compared to the thousands of dollars in repairs they'll save you from. Starting off with letting your engine warm up fully before enjoying some spirited driving. But before we get into that, it's extremely important to let your engine warm up before you even start driving, especially when it's cold out. See, when your car's been sitting for even just a few hours, the engine and the engine oil cool down. And when the oil is cool, it becomes much thicker, which is not nearly as good for lubricating the engine. So when you first start your car, it's good to let it run for 20 to 30 seconds before even putting it into gear. Most cars have something called a cat heating cycle, which actually keeps the RPM higher for about 20 to 30 seconds, and once it goes back down, that's a good rule of thumb to start driving. These 20 to 30 seconds give your oil enough time to thin out, letting it lubricate your engine much more efficiently, dramatically cutting down on wear and tear. Going back to spirited driving, you not only want your oil to warm up fully, you also want your engine to warm up fully before driving hard. Because when the engine is cold, it actually shrinks in size. The space between the cylinders and the piston rings is very small, meaning that it's harder for the oil to lubricate it properly, and there's much more friction, causing a lot more wear if you start driving hard. Not only that though, when the engine is cold, it's much more fragile. If you've ever dropped a cold glass, chances are it's shattered into a million pieces, and your engine is quite similar. If it's cold and you start driving hard, there's chances tiny cracks will form. So make sure your engine is fully warmed up before starting to drive like a race car driver. Most BMWs have a temperature gauge in the middle right over here, or to the right over here, or if you have the M Performance steering wheel like me, it's right over here. Once your gauge reaches this part, or 95 Celsius / 203 Fahrenheit, you're good to go. Since we're already talking about oil, let's talk about oil changes. Unless you're driving like a granny, you need to be changing your oil frequently, even more than BMW recommends, especially if you're driving hard. The reason you should be changing your oil more frequently is really simple. As your oil gets older, it not only gets filled with dirt, it also starts breaking down, losing its ability to properly lubricate the engine. With added heat and pressure, your oil breaks down a lot quicker, which is why you'll be needing to change it much more frequently if you're doing track days, enjoying spirited driving, and doing a burnout here and there. BMW recommends you change your oil every 10,000 miles or 16,000 kilometers, which is okay if you're driving gently, but even then I'd still change it a bit more frequently. But if you're driving around town like it's a racetrack, you should be changing your oil much more frequently. Personally, I change my oil every 3,100 miles or 5,000 kilometers. The way I like to think about it is, 1, oil is much cheaper than a new engine, and 2, if it's going to be keeping my engine running perfectly, I don't mind spending a few extra dollars. Once you've gotten these first 2 things taken care of, addressing and proactively fixing your engine's most common problems is a great next step. But only if you're off warranty. If you're still on warranty, these are still extremely important to do, but wait until your warranty's done. I say this because there's a good chance addressing your engine's most common problems will actually void your warranty. Let me explain with this example. The old M3, M4, and M2 competition / CS engine, which BMW calls the S55, is known to have a problem with the crank hub. With it being made of 2 pieces, under high load it could separate, throwing off the timing and completely destroying the engine. Luckily, the fix is really simple. All you need is a 1-piece crank hub, which will never spin, but the problem is that it's aftermarket. And if BMW ever found that you have an aftermarket crank hub, there's a chance they'd void your warranty. But once you're off warranty, you'll definitely want to start addressing the problems, especially if you plan on tuning and modifying your car. If you're not exactly excited to spend a whole bunch of money, there is a budget way to do this, and that is only fixing the problems that lead to much bigger issues. For example, if your engine had a really common problem where the oil pump suddenly stops working, causing the engine to seize, you'd want to get that fixed as soon as possible. The best way to do this is by searching up your engine and then seeing what common problems it has. Then see how often they happen. Let's say, for example, 95,000 miles for a water pump, and then try to get that part replaced a few thousand miles before it's supposed to happen. Talking about issues, if you ever notice something wrong with your car, get it checked out as soon as possible, even if it's something small. Because leaving the problem alone won't only make the original problem worse, it'll also possibly cause other problems which can be much more serious. Which is why when I was scripting this video, I realized that I needed a new intake filter, so I ordered one right away. Just like oil changes, how often you replace your air filter really depends on how you drive, or more importantly, where you drive. If you're driving in areas where there's lots of dust, you're going to want to replace your filter a lot more often. Luckily, new filters aren't really that expensive and they do a whole lot of good for your engine. Most importantly, the air filter makes sure that no dirt and debris get into the engine, which could cause a whole lot of damage. As it gets dirtier, the chances of this happening are much more likely, which is why you always want a clean air filter. But not only that, having a fresh air filter will have your car running much more smoothly, accelerating faster, and it'll also improve your fuel efficiency. Anyway, thank you so much for watching today's video. Here are 4 more that you'll enjoy just as much.